Welcome to the Lesson 1 presentation on plagiarism. What is plagiarism again? In your English 100 and 200 classes, you should have talked about what plagiarism is and how to avoid it. Still, even with discussion, sometimes we forget. So this presentation will serve as a reminder on the definition of plagiarism, what plagiarism means in an academic environment versus a professional environment, and how to avoid it. The definition of plagiarism is when a writer deliberately uses someone else's language, ideas, or other original, not common knowledge material without acknowledging its source. In short, it's taking someone else's work and passing it off as your own without any reference to the original author. There are two different kinds of plagiarism. One is intentional and the other is unintentional. Most forms of plagiarism teachers see is unintentional, believe it or not. Unintentional plagiarism is when an author takes someone else's work but doesn't understand the proper way to give credit to the source. Unintentional plagiarism could be as innocent as forgetting to add an in-text citation to a quote, to as serious as completely omitting the citation because the author didn't understand she needed to include it. This kind of plagiarism isn't malicious and is usually done out of ignorance more than anything else. However, it is still plagiarism and can get the author in very hot water. On the other hand, intentional plagiarism is when an author knowingly and maliciously passes someone else's work off as their own. The author knows he didn't write or create the content, but decides he'd rather get credit for himself than cite the original author. Buying or downloading essays online, copying directly from someone else's paper, using an old copy of an essay, or cutting and pasting from a website are all forms of malicious plagiarism. In an academic setting, intentional plagiarism can result in a failing grade on a test or for a course, or even get you kicked out of school. In a professional setting, the consequences can be much worse and further ranging. Don't do this. When in a professional setting, plagiarism isn't always called plagiarism. Usually the concept is lumped under the larger category of professional and writing ethics. Obviously, it's unethical to take someone else's work and pass it off as your own. At best, being caught taking someone else's work can result in scandal and a black mark on your reputation. At worst, it could cost you your job and the possibility of future jobs. There are, unfortunately, no lack of examples of professional plagiarism, but did you know some of them involved very famous people? The website onlineclasses.org lists the top 10 plagiarism scandals of all time, and they include the singer Michael Bolton, New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd, and even President Obama, who was accused of using parts of a speech given by Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick in 2008. President Obama later apologized, and Patrick dismissed the incident as unfair to the president, but it still caused a minor scandal at the time. More recently, last year, presidential hopeful Ben Carson was accused of plagiarizing parts of his book, America the Beautiful, and had to apologize and work with his publisher to fix the book. The bottom line is, either done intentionally or by accident, plagiarism isn't going to reflect positively on anyone in a professional setting. So how do you avoid it? In an academic setting, the best way to avoid plagiarizing someone's work is to cite it. If you're writing researched work that needs citation, your instructor usually tells you what kind of citation style to use, like MLA, APA, or Chicago. Some instructors will be very strict on formatting and proper citation styles. Others are more interested in making sure you get the citation in your work rather than looking at every period and comma in the right place. You have to figure out what your instructor wants and go from there. Similarly, in a professional setting, your boss, manager, client, or editor will tell you what kind of citations to use in a document if they have a specific one in mind. In most professional settings, format isn't nearly as important as the citation itself. As long as you tell the reader where you got the source from, either with just a link to the website or a mention of a book or article, that will suffice. In some professions, though, especially ones where you have to write for publication, like the medical field, for example, you must adhere to stricter conventions of citation. It's up to you to figure out what is appropriate in what setting. The best way to do this is to look at other written work in the same environment and learn from those as examples. Be ethical. Some specific ways to avoid copying and thus plagiarizing are: always put other people's words that you take word for word in quotation marks. And tell me at the end of the document where you got it. Give a link, give a document or book name, etc. If you use citations or if you use information from somewhere but do not use anything word for word, just simply put a link at the bottom of the document indicating where the information came from. If you use multiple websites, books, or articles for source material, give multiple lines of citation. And lastly, try to avoid cutting and pasting directly from other documents or websites. Source material is meant to supplement or enhance your work, not take the place of it. Here are some examples of documents that appropriately cite source material and one document that does not cite properly. These are all examples of documents that either do or do not plagiarize from source text. The first two do not, they're appropriate. The third one is an example of plagiarism. These documents are available on the lesson 1 page under plagiarism example document. So this first one I came up with completely myself. I wrote it all. I didn't look at anything. I came up with it from memory, from my experience of making a grilled cheese sandwich. They're all about making grilled cheese sandwiches. I came up with the headings, I came up with the steps, I put them all down, I wrote them all. So I didn't have to cite anything because it was completely my work. Figure 1 then I did take from the web and I cited it right here at the bottom. So I have a little explanation down here in the box that you can look at when you look at the documents. The second document then, I looked at a page on foodnetwork.com about making grilled cheese sandwiches. The introduction I wrote myself. I didn't take this directly from the Food Network page. Down here, I did take their steps from the Food Network page, but I reworded them and condensed some things. And I also said directly here are easy steps from the Food Network to get you started. So I said not only in the text of the document that I used their page, but I also cited it down here. And you also see where I cited the picture as well. So then there's my little explanation down there. This last document is bad. It's completely plagiarized. Essentially what I did was I completely cut and paste directly from a website called allrecipes.com. I had to reformat it because the formatting came through very strangely, but the all the text and all of the ingredients and all of the verbiage is completely brought from that website. You can't do that. Even though I cited the website right here, it's still plagiarism because I didn't put it in quotation marks and I didn't say in the body of the text that it was from allrecipes.com. So that is an example of a completely plagiarized document. Again, these documents are available in the lesson 1 page. For the rest of this semester, always give good documentation when you need to so you can avoid unethical writing. If you start a good practice now, you shouldn't have any problems as you start your professional life. Thank you for listening, and remember to be polite and cite. These are the citations from this presentation.